And we're joined on the phone today by former Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, Newt Gingrich. And we're talking about a new book he has out now. It's called Shakedown. Mr. Gingrich, how are you today?
How are you?
I'm excellent. Thank you so much for taking the time with me.
I'm glad to do it.
Well, let's talk a bit about your new book, Shakedown. What can the listeners expect with this new one?
Well, I think they'll find that it's a roller coaster, sort of an adventure story. We have a Iranian general and a Russian billionaire who plot together to see if they can set off a nuclear weapon underwater off of Washington and Baltimore, something which the U.S. had studied in World War II and the Soviet Union studied during the Cold War. And we have two American heroes, Valerie Mayberry of the FBI and Brett Garrett, a former Navy SEAL, and their job is to stop them from taking out Baltimore and Washington. And it goes all over the world. It's very exciting, very dynamic. And I just tell people, if you're tired of worrying about the virus and you are tired of politics, that this is a great alternative that I think you'll find very interesting, and it'll take your mind off of things for a couple days.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff going on in the world today, and you are mostly known for your political career, but this is your 38th book. I think that's incredible.
It is something like that. We have about 10 novels. I like novels because our goal is both to entertain you and educate you. I think you learn stuff from reading my novels, but at the same time, if we can't keep it fun and interesting and exciting, you're not going to learn anything. So I enjoy the adventure. I like the creativity. I'm a historian by training, and having been Speaker of the House and having been part of the Gang of Eight who had access to all of America's secrets and all that, I feel like I can bring unique things to a novel like Shakedown, and people can both, have a good time, but they can also, at the same time, find themselves in a situation where they're learning something brand new.
Well, how did you get into writing fiction? Is this something you've done your whole life, or how did you find yourself becoming such a prolific author?
Well, I like to write, and I both, for example, I just did last October, had a book come out called Trump versus China, and so, I'm constantly looking at ideas, looking at interesting things, but I also was approached years ago by a publisher who said, why didn't I do a alternative of World War II? It was a book that did moderately well. And then years later, I decided to write a novel about an alternative Gettysburg. And our goal with those things was to get people to think, to get them to realize that history wasn't automatic, it wasn't just something you memorize, but there were alternatives that could have happened. And so I really got into this, and I find when you write novels like Shakedown, you're dealing with personalities, you're dealing with characters, you're dealing with relationships. We have a reporter in there who sort of fits the conservative vision of the Washington Press Corps. We have typical bureaucracies. The general that we have from Iran actually was Soleimani, who was the guy we killed a while back in Iraq. So he was really modeled off the real Soleimani, and I think people will find that kind of interesting. How do they think? How do they operate? So I just find that when you do novels, you have an ability to do things that are different and that are interesting, that really allow you to engage the audience in different ways than you would if all you did was nonfiction.
Definitely. Again, we're on the phone here with former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, where we're talking about his new book, Shakedown. And I wanted to ask you, a political question here. A lot of weird stuff, again, happening in the world today. A lot of people very divided on a lot of things. How do you think the presidential election is going to turn out this year?
Well, I think that it's probably going to be Trump winning. I think he's got a couple of very clear challenges, and I think that if he can pull those off, that he'll be fine. But first of all, he's got to finish defeating the virus, so it's no longer a life and death threat. Second, he's got to reopen the economy and get back to what he was doing so well. I mean, it's easy to forget that 2 months ago we had as strong an economy as we've ever had. We had the lowest unemployment rate in 50 years. Things seem to be going really well. And then, it got to be the virus sort of overwhelmed everything. So I think that the key will be to see if he can get us back into a better economy and get it. If he does, I suspect he'll get reelected very easily. On the other side, I think, frankly, that I'm biased, but my impression is that Joe Biden really has a lot of weaknesses and may have a very hard time being able to get through a whole campaign. I mean, I think there's just a lot to look at there that doesn't make any sense.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how things shape up. Again, Shakedown just out now. Is there anything else coming up for you, sir? Anything you're working on soon?
Well, we're working on a book about the election this fall that'll come out probably in late June, called The Trump Effect. And frankly, I had to redo it. We had a clear vision of what we were doing, and then of course the virus came along, and boom, we're back having to deal with a very different world than we thought we would be dealing with a few months ago.
Definitely. Well, it's been great speaking with you today, sir. Thank you so much for your time.
Enjoyed it. Thank you.
And again, that was former Speaker of the House, former presidential candidate Newt Gingrich, and his new book, Shakedown, is available now.